guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing some Halloween based videos. Did you all like the intro, by the way, the new Halloween intro that I've put on purely just for today's reactions. Now we're going to do a series of 3 or 4 Halloween related or ghost story type things, just to celebrate Halloween, because everyone knows on the channel that I'm a horror fan. Now this first one is 3 true Halloween horror stories with rain sounds. Sounds intriguing. I'm liking the start of it because it's got a load of pumpkins on there, and I'm hoping this is going to be a cool addition to this Halloween special. Anyway, before we jump into this reaction, if you do actually like my videos, then please consider it and like and subscribe. It supports me, supports the channel, and I appreciate it very much. Don't forget to leave the notification on so that you never miss an upload, and the link to this video will be down in the description for anybody who wants to check it out by themselves. Okay, true Halloween horror stories, eh? Let's see what's going to happen.
Years ago, when I was a kid, I used to go trick-or-treating with my friend Michael every Halloween. Afterwards, we would hang out and eat our candy that we got while watching scary movies. On this one year, Michael and I went trick-or-treating around my neighborhood, which was pretty big. And afterwards we got back to my house. Then we put on a movie, and the plan was for Michael to spend the night.
Sounds like a typical normal Halloween. Funny that his name's Michael. Well, his friend's name's Michael. Will he turn out to be Michael Myers?
Shortly after we got home, my mom, who was the only other person home, said she was going to bed. It was only 9 p.m., but she had work early the next morning. We were watching a scary movie in the living room after that, and got probably about 30 minutes into it when I heard a knock coming from the front door. It really startled me because of the fact that we were watching a scary film. Then I remembered how it was Halloween, and I stopped being scared because I figured it was just a trick-or-treater.
As you would expect that, wouldn't you? Expect someone to be knocking on the door trick-or-treating, but you do, when you're watching horror films, you do get a little bit on edge if it's a good one.
I remembered how it was Halloween, and I stopped being scared because I figured it was just a trick-or-treater, so I started to walk towards the door. But as I got closer, I remembered how late it was, almost 10 p.m., and there weren't really people trick-or-treating out this late. I decided to just take a look out of the window first to see who it was. I peeked out from behind the blinds and saw a creepy-looking man standing at the front door. He looked pretty tall and was skinny with a little beard. He also had sunglasses on, but didn't appear to be in any kind of costume. I had a bad feeling about it, so I decided not to answer the door, and Michael, who was still on the couch, asked me who it was. I told him a creepy-looking dude was there, and I wasn't answering. I watched as the man looked around for a little while, and then finally walked away. I was really happy to see him go, because as a 12-year-old kid, I got scared pretty easy.
Hang on, your 12-year-old kid gets scared pretty easy, but you're watching horror films on Halloween. What's going on? What are you doing that for?
Happy to see him go, because as a 12-year-old kid, I got scared pretty easy. I went back and resumed the movie, but I would say just about 10 minutes later, we heard a knock coming from the door once again. We ignored it until they knocked again at a louder volume. I wanted to call my mom, but I knew she was sleeping and had to be up early for work, so I didn't. Michael and I both walked quietly over to the window this time and looked out. But as soon as we pulled the blinds back, we saw the man standing at our front step looking directly at us. I made eye contact with the man, who had an angry look on his face. We quickly covered the window back up and ran away back to the living room. We were just hoping that the man would decide to go away, but instead, we heard the knocking once again, but not at the door this time. Now it moved to the window where we had been looking out of. We couldn't see him from the blinds, but we knew that he was right on the other side. I was starting to freak out, but Michael said maybe it was just some guy trying to scare people on Halloween.
Possibly.
I hoped that was the case, and the knocking from the man moved from one window to another. He seemed to be making his way around the house to the back. Then we didn't hear anything for a short time.
Now that's where you call the police. People, obviously, if you don't recognise the guy and he's banging on your door, banging on your window, you'd be like, "What do you want? What do you want?" You know, and if he doesn't answer or he's being creepy, like, you just, ring the police.
All Michael and I could really do was sit there and listen. Then suddenly, we heard the loud sound of glass being broken. It sounded like it was coming from the back of the house at one of the basement windows. When we heard this, Michael and I both went running upstairs to my mom's room like 5-year-olds. When we got upstairs, we woke her up and told her someone had just broken into the house. My mom got out her phone and called the police, and also locked the door to her bedroom. Michael and I hid under her bed while we heard her talking on the phone to the police. Then we just had to wait for the police to arrive. We heard the man walking around downstairs, but he never came up the stairs. Eventually, we stopped hearing him, and by the time the police showed up, he was gone.
Whoa, so they phoned the police, they went down to the mum, phoned the police, okay. Little bit creepy of a story, nothing to make me worried about anything. I had a bit of head on, I wouldn't have been bothered, but that's me being an English person. Let's go to story 2.
This happened my freshman year of college. I went to a pretty big university, and over time, I met a decent amount of people and had a few groups of friends that I would hang out with. By the time Halloween rolled around my freshman year, I had plans to go out with some of my friends. I dressed up as a nerd and we went out to a few of the bars around campus. As it got later, a few of my friends wanted to go to one of the bars in town that was pretty strict. Being 19 at the time, I figured I wouldn't get in. I told them they should go ahead, and I Snapchatted a few of my other friends asking what they were doing. One of my friends named John told me about a party he had been invited to. He said it was supposed to be really big and asked if I wanted to go with.
This is like pointing towards like a Scream, the film Scream scenario, where they go to a party and stuff, they all get like stabbed and stuff. That's what it sounds like to me, where it's going to go. It might be completely different than that, but that's the way it's looking to me anyway.
To me, this was perfect because I wasn't tired yet and still wanted to hang out with people. I told him I'd go, and I walked to the edge of campus and met up with him. We then walked a few blocks to where the address was that John told me. We saw what appeared to be the house. We could just barely hear the music coming from inside, and saw a kid wearing a basketball jersey and sunglasses sitting out front drinking a beer. We walked up and John greeted the kid, who I guess knew him. He introduced me and the kid said his name was Jake. Then we both walked inside the house, and the first thing we noticed was a little entryway filled with shoes. We took off ours, and then we went through another doorway into a room where we saw a speaker blaring music, but nobody was in the room. Immediately I got a bad feeling, and as I started to walk forward to the next room, I heard footsteps coming from behind us. John and I turned around and saw 2 large men enter the room with baseball bats.
Uh-oh.
They had on ski masks over their faces, so I couldn't tell anything about them, but they appeared to be well over 6 feet tall. One of the men shouted that they would hurt us unless we did what they said. Then they ordered us to go into the next room that appeared to be at the back end of the house. I was terrified, and John looked stunned and pretty scared as well. The next room appeared to be the kitchen. There was a little table with a chair there, and it also had a stove and a sink, then the back door to the house. There was also a wooden door cracked open that led to the basement, which is where the 2 men told us to go. They stood about 6 feet behind us with their bats in their right hand and their left hands pointing. As we were walking towards the door, John nudged me, and just as I looked at him, he suddenly darted for the back kitchen door, which I saw him pull the lock back and open it all in the blink of an eye. Without even really thinking, I followed him and ran as quick as I could to the door. I had a strong rush of adrenaline as I did, and I heard the men behind us start to yell and run after us. I literally rammed into John as he ran out the door, and I almost tripped over him. As I was almost out the door, I could hear the men getting closer and felt the back of my right leg get hit with probably a baseball bat. It got me in my upper right calf, and it hurt really bad, but the adrenaline kept me going out the door, and I followed John around the side of the house. The longer we ran, the more my leg throbbed, but we seemed to get a little bit farther away from the men who were behind us, and as we passed by 2 garbage cans that were on the side of the house, I pushed one of them over to try to slow the men down. John started yelling as he ran, and by the time we reached the street, we didn't notice the men chasing us anymore. I ran with John all the way back to campus before I basically collapsed from being tired and the pain from my leg. We called the police and then told them the address of the house and everything. Apparently by the time they showed up, nobody was there, and the house was vacant at the time, but was owned by a guy who typically rented to students. I'm sure that John and I narrowly avoided something terrible that night, and I had a really sore leg for a few weeks, but other than that I was fine.
Not really a horror story, it's more of a you're going to get knocked out by somebody with baseball bats or tortured or something. I suppose, yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's a bit tame. It's a bit tame for a scary thing, isn't it?
This story happened 2 years ago on Halloween, and is one of the most disturbing things to happen in my life.
Ooh.
I'm the father of a boy who is now 8 years old, but was 6 at the time of this story. I went out trick-or-treating with him and my wife around our neighborhood, which had quite a few kids in it, and it was a pretty busy night. We stayed out maybe 2 hours until my son got tired and was satisfied with the amount of candy that he had. Then we walked back home and went inside. We had just left a bowl of candy out front of our house while we were gone, which was empty by the time we got back, even though it was only 8 o'clock. Only about a minute after we got back inside, as my son was starting to dig into his candy, the doorbell rang, which I knew was likely another trick-or-treater. I opened the front door to see a little boy about the age of my son and his father standing there smiling. I called to my wife to ask if we had more candy as the man said hi to me. I noticed that his son was kind of jumping up and down, and the man said he was really sorry, but his son had to use the bathroom, and said they were about a 30-minute walk from their house. I saw my wife give me a look from across the room, and I didn't really want to let them in the house, but I figured I had to, so I told them they could. The boy ran down the hall, and I walked over to my wife. She said she didn't like the idea of people just walking into our home.
As you
would.
wouldn't.
I didn't either, but the dad seemed nice enough. I told my wife everything was fine, and about a minute later, the boy returned with his father, who said thank you several times. I handed him a little candy, and they went on their way. At that point, it was a relief to me that they were gone from the house, and the rest of the night we got quite a few more trick-or-treaters. Finally, after that, we all went to bed. Everything was good until I was woken up in the night to the sound of my son yelling and running to my bedroom. My wife and I got up and saw that he was right outside our room, saying that a man had climbed in his window. I ran down the hall into his bedroom and saw his window was wide open, with the man who had been in our house earlier getting outside of it.
I'd have run to the window and pushed him down the roof. If he'd have been climbing into my house, I'd have seen him out, whoosh, straight off. Ha! Don't like people who break into people's houses.
And saw his window was wide open, with the man who had been in our house earlier getting outside of it. This was a horrible feeling, but I was just glad that my son seemed to be okay. I chased after the man, but he got out of sight, so at that point I decided to call the police. I was quite angry until they arrived. We told them everything, and my wife and I stayed up for the rest of the night. For the next few days, we slept with our son in our bedroom with us, until we finally received news that the police had found the man. We were told that the boy who came into our house to use the bathroom was not the man's actual son, but a boy who had been abducted by him a whole year prior.
Whoa!
This news was very disturbing to hear, but the boy was returned to his family, and I'm just glad that the man was brought to justice.
Whoa, so maybe that bloke, the guy, was trying to pinch his son as well to have him as an abductee. Whoa, okay. Not massively scary to me, but I mean, you know, some of the stuff I can understand why people get creeped out of it, having the experience of that. I mean, someone climbing in through your bedroom where your son is, you know, you'd kill him, wouldn't you? You'd push him out the window, at least. That's what I would have done, and then gone downstairs and filled him in. That's what I would have done. But yeah, not bad stories. Considering I'm a horror fan, very, very tame for me listening in. But what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, if you like my videos, then please hit like and subscribe. Support me on Patreon or any of the social medias, and the links are in the description. Thanks for watching. I shall see you on the next one.